I think we're live, Brian. So I'm very excited to have this conversation because I know a little secret about the board of directors, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So with that in mind, do you want to get started or do you want me to get started?
Well, I'll get started for two things. First of all, I'll tell you, we are up in the Dallas area. We're under a tornado watch, and our electricity has been going on and off at times. That's why it's kind of dark in here. I mean, I can try to lighten it up, but I think you can see me enough. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I will preface this by saying, with as much as I know about grants that Sabrina, you don't. This is the opposite. Sabrina is way on top of the boards versus, I mean, and it's something she likes versus, the way I like grants. It's the way something you like versus, versus that. I've always had
grants, but I don't like them. I tell you that much.
Yeah, I've had good board members, but I've also had rotten ones, and they frustrate the fool out of me because sometimes they can't see the vision. They don't understand their roles. There's a lot of different things you need with getting a good board and getting your board active and understanding your mission and that kind of thing. So I will let you start, but I wanted to do the preface by saying I defer. I mean, I could probably help you, but Sabrina helps a ton. So
yeah. So I take a little bit of a different approach to boards of directors. Again, I have served on, I was counting up the other day and someone asked me how many boards I've served on. I'm like, over the course of time, I've served on like 11 boards, maybe even more. But when I got to 11, I stopped counting. And I currently serve on 5 boards right now. And so what I have learned, not only serving on boards, but also managing a board as a CEO, is that the intent of the individual, most individuals, the intent of the individuals that's serving on the board is a good intent. They said yes because they wanted to help. They said yes because of who asked them. They said yes because, they believe in the mission. And they're also saying yes to giving up their time, giving up time with family. So I always look at it from that perspective of these are good people who said yes. So then where does it go wrong? Now, a lot of times, this is where my CEOs and my executives don't like me as much. But I think a lot of times it goes wrong at the very beginning with the recruitment process, right? So how are they being recruited to the board? Are they being recruited to the board without an interview process? Are they being recruited to the board with just like somebody say, hey, come on over here, we need your help? Like, Brian, I know Brian's a good guy. And then Brian walks into the board meeting. It's like, you're it, Brian, you're on the board. No conversation, no expectation, no nothing. And then you sit there for about a good year, just kind of looking around, going, what's going on? There was no orientation. There was none of that happening. So there's no breakdown of the assumptions that we bring when we come to a board of directors, whether that is, believe it or not, a corporate board or a nonprofit board. Because at the end of the day, we bring the assumptions, especially in the nonprofit sector. We bring the assumptions that, first of all, a nonprofit can't make money. We bring the assumption that maybe even the person that's sitting in the ED chair is not qualified to be the CEO. So your job is to tell them what to do. You bring all of these assumptions. And if you don't recruit right, you're reinforcing that assumption. If you don't orientate, you're reinforcing that assumption. And then you, as the ED or the CEO, you get frustrated and you just don't even talk to your board unless it's that monthly meeting. Now, can some board members be buttholes? Yes. But again, are they being a butthole because they make the assumption that's what they're supposed to do? Because they haven't been told anything differently. I know you've dealt with a couple of buttholes in your career. I've dealt with a couple too. Not a lot, honestly. I have not dealt with a lot of them because we had a recruitment process in place. We had the questions. They knew how much time they needed. I think I've had two incidents in my 20 plus year career with board members, and they weren't that bad at the end of the day compared to some of the things that you've gone through.
Well, it's what you run into is you run into the people who know everything.
Mm-hmm.
They know they're like, well, I'm a president of a bank, so I know nonprofits, and you don't. You got. I mean, there's a difference to it. They look at things through a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I had one. Okay, so I had one site, and this is a true story.
Mm-hmm.
I had my Boys and Girls Club. We had a bunch of school-based sites. We called the school-based sites the extension program.
Mm-hmm.
The extension program was losing money, legitimately losing money. But let me explain. That was intentional because I priced it so that more families could attend. My logic was, and I'd explain this to them, and I'd be like, because our prices are so low, we're looking really, really good for grants. And so we would lose, I don't know, I think our overall, when you look at just the supplies and the salaries, we were losing based on income. We were losing, I don't know, $1,000, $1,500 a month. So at the end of the day, we're losing $18,000 a year on that program. And I get it. Just looking at that program is $18,000 negative, and that's not good. But because of that program, we received $125,000 in grants, a $75,000 one and a $50,000 one, because our numbers were so affordable because we had so many kids in the program. So I was like, individually, we're losing money, but because of we're making money, we're profitable. Well, we should close down sites because, Brian, we're losing money. No. We're losing money in that one area. But it's because of that losing money in that one area that we're getting more money in grants. Yeah, but we're losing money. And I was like, and it was so frustrating that they didn't understand. They were looking, well, I'm a banker, and I'm an investment guy, and we're looking at the components, only the components. And I was like, it's not siloed. It's a bigger picture. But I had to get through that because they wanted to close a bunch of sites, and we would have served. That would have been close to 150 kids less that would not have had a place to go after school if that would have happened. If their understanding or lack of understanding was to have won out, kind of thing. And part of it is you run into the know-it-all people are just, insane. Rather than wanting to be, here's my specialty, how I can contribute.
Yes.
They want to control things, So that's for me, because again, just so everybody can get the whole picture of the background. Yeah, I've had plenty of times. I've called Sabrina many a times and said, my board is freaking ridiculous. and because they were freaking ridiculous. They'd be arguing. I mean, this true story, another true story.
Let's go with it, because I got some feedback for you.
Oh yeah, well, this is a good one too, because sometimes, we would do the orientation. We actually interviewed. We said we'd tell them up front, here are the expectations and stuff like that. Like I would go to lunch with them or get a coffee with them and explain everything. Say, hey, you're being nominated. We're not promising you.
Right.
Would you be interested in it based on this? So we did all those steps. One guy quit the board.
Okay.
And I said, okay. And I, trying to exit interview, and I go, okay, so what's the reason? Because we merged and we took over a much larger town than ours.
Right.
And his reason was, the honest to God truth. God told me. I said, God, like Jesus, God, right? Yeah. Jesus loves the little children, told you to not work for an organization that works with little children. He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, he has a big contact with one of the energy companies and got us $50,000 a year. I said, are you guys still participating, just so I know, for budget purpose? No, Jesus told me not to give you money. Okay. That's what happens when you live deep in the Bible Belt.
Here's a couple of things I'm going to say. Based on your story, a couple of things that I am going to say. One is, and y'all take notes around this. One is, and I know you did this. Well, I'm not going to make any assumptions.
Yep.
I too stacked my board with a bunch of bankers. And let me tell y'all why I stacked my board with a bunch of bankers, because I like bankers. Actually, bankers tend to give you money through the bank, and it can be very fruitful. But you do have to be careful because they do all think numbers, and they kind of think that. There's one or two bankers that I found to be very creative.
Sure.
But here's the thing. What I have learned over the years in managing the board of directors is not managing the board as a collective. It is managing individual board members. So if I know how a board member thinks, and I know I want to propose something that's going to be contrary to how they think, I would go to lunch with them way in advance of this.
Sure.
Have these conversations and see what their pushbacks are and address those pushbacks and have answers for those before they get to the boardroom. And if I begin to realize I am not the person that's going to get through to them, I would turn to another board member and I would say, hey, I need you to talk to this person before the board meeting. One of the most valuable lessons, and I know you went on city council, but one of the most valuable lessons that I learned from a mayor in our town that was mayor for 20 years is the real deals happen before the meeting. And so it's very good and strategic in doing things before the meetings. So I met with my board chair every month before a board meeting. Like that was our standing lunch date with each board member. Some of them I met with on a weekly basis, especially my champions. And then some of them I met with, once or twice a year. But I think people make that mistake of trying to manage the board as a collective as opposed to managing boards as individual. I served on a board, just did the cool exit thing. And one board member, his sole purpose, whether he agreed or not agreed, is what I began to realize, was to be the contrary voice in the room.
Everybody. I get it because we need that, but somebody needs to play devil's advocate. No, you don't. No, you don't. Yes. If it's we have a grant for $100,000, we just have to all say yes. Well, what if but they're not? Just stop. Trust me. You guys hired me as a CEO.
Yes.
To do my job, and I've done my due diligence. If I got us in trouble, then fire me. But until then, trust me.
Right. So to say that, and then on your second story, which was about, what was that second story about? Because I was like, I can't believe that happened.
Jesus told me to leave.
Yeah, Jesus. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's not. Okay. Here's the lesson in that. Because when Jesus tells you to do something, let's just say Jesus did tell him to do it and he listened to his heart and he did it, right? The second lesson that I would get from that is I need more than one point of contact in that organization. If everything you're going to do is going to be based on what Jesus tells you, then that is great. That is good. I'm not knocking it, but I'm not going to put all my eggs in that one basket.
Sure.
So that means strategically moving forward, the lesson that I would have learned is I need to go and introduce myself to someone in that organization so that we can befriend someone else in that organization.
Sure. Keep them rolling.
Because board members are people and they have their quirks. We have to remember that. That's why I say it's more about the individual than the collective.
Right. Well, let me ask you this then. What do you do? This would be an opinion for you. What do you do about those alpha board members who really want to drive everything and don't, and don't, and I say this with respect because I always tell everybody, every nonprofit wants to have volunteers, and your biggest volunteers are your board members. They're, they're your mouthpieces. They go out and tell their friends, they help raise money and stuff. What do you think about two parts? A, controlling the alphas. And B, especially when the alphas eventually work their way up to a position of power, and B, about how do you prescribe to the idea? Because I was starting to get into this a little bit of kind of compartmentalizing them. Like, for example, I'd be like, you three are my good fundraisers. I want you at every meeting, but if you miss a few because you're going to raise more money, I can dig it. You guys don't raise a whole lot, but you're very creative. So on the days that we're talking about the golf tournament or this event or the youth of the year or what any of those things, I really need you there, that kind of thing. And I would actually I started getting to that point where I would say, and I didn't want it to ever seem like the guy who's the pain saying, I need you, I'm intentionally trying to keep you out, because that's not it. They're all board members. We're all invited. That's, of course, they're all your bosses. So you want to make sure that they're all available to do it. But there are times when there's something that's a golf tournament, and we've done it for many years, and we're going to add a few components, and I want creativity to it. I don't need the contrarian there going, well, what if somebody gets hit by a golf ball? We've done this for 20 years. Nobody's ever gotten hit by a golf ball. You know what I mean? I don't need that extra negative energy brought in.
Yes.
So
okay. So going back to the alpha and that. So I consider myself an alpha, and there's some good and some bad to that, right? So I know with them, it's all about ego.
Right.
So traditionally, knowing and dealing with the individual, I've learned to cater to their ego.
Okay.
Because that's what works. And in catering to their ego, again, it's about being strategic. Hey, at this next board meeting, we're going to be talking about X, Y, and Z. And I know you're really good at that. So before the board meeting, these are my thoughts, but I wanted to hear your thoughts. Can you share with me what your thoughts are going to be? Because this is what I'm thinking and what I'm going to say. But I really value what you have to say. So, let me know so that it help me shape the words that I'm going to say. Or can you cover that topic at the board meeting? Because my goal as the CEO was to do 10% of the talking and to let my board do the 90% of the talking.
Right.
So that's the way I would handle that. Now, as far as your segmenting, here's I don't know how many people do this, but this is what we did for our board meetings. So the packets, of course, went out at least 72 hours in advance. And then after that, I did not have an admin staff. I did not. I wish I did, but I did not. But I did have someone that supported me in certain ways. So Gloria, I will speak her name. I would have Gloria call each of the board members to see if they were going to be at the meeting. And then she would give me who said they were going to be there, who said they couldn't be there. So then I would look at the agenda, and based on the topic, like you said, I really need this person here. I would pick up the phone. Call them, and I would say, hey, I really need you here because we're going to be talking about this, X, Y, and Z, A, B, C, D. And then the people that I was like, thank God they ain't going to be there. It was thank God they ain't going to be there. I wouldn't call and encourage them. And then if they were, again, it's all about my board doing most of the talking, because it's frustrating. It is frustrating. But what I saw also is that when the board is the mouthpiece and they're doing the talking, other board members won't be as confrontational as they would.
Listen, let me ask you this. I've never really had a large, never was there ever contention. I mean, we had
not contention. So I want, that's what I'm saying. I never had that huge contention either, but that's because I truly believe it's because my board did most of the presenting of the agenda. Even I shouldn't say that. Before me, there was a CEO that was there 30 years.
Right.
So the board meetings looked like her doing all the talking. There was no contention. Everybody just kind of nodded and agreed and left. I didn't want that in my team.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said for that, though. When you're the expert, I mean, you don't want just a rubber stamp, but when you're the expert too, you want your people to listen to you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And understand. I mean, it always bugged the fool out of me when I explain to people how, like, when you do a peer-to-peer campaign, the idea behind a peer-to-peer campaign is going to the people in person. whether or
Yes.
not you're a good fundraiser, because it makes the person, the potential donor, feel important.
Yes.
Oh, well, I just emailed it. And I said, no.
No, you got to go in
Yeah,
person.
that's all I emailed. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I was like going, why did you hire? I mean, we would actually do this. And I'll tell you this, because and I think that I see where you're going too, that could easily be a negative, is that if you get someone who is constantly, if I'm always talking, my voice becomes redundant to them. So I would have, my director of operations was this lady named up in Sherman. Her name is Paula. And she and I would plan, and I'd say, hey, Paula, I need you to come into this meeting, and here's what I really need you to explain to them when we're going with this, because, so you just being a different voice, same exact message.
Yes.
But a different voice.
Yes. And I found it to have even more power when it was board members saying the message. Now, does it cause you to do a little bit more work? Yes. I had to get up and be at a meeting at 7 a.m., which I didn't like, with the executive committee, coming in with a draft agenda and saying, this is what you're talking about. This is what you're talking about. This is what you're talking about. Do you have any questions about what you're going to talk about? Do you need any more support information on what you're going to talk about? Yeah, it was a little bit more time consuming than me just doing the agenda and going into the boardroom and just speaking it, right? And here it is. But when they started being the ones to say, hey, it's annual campaign time, or you say peer-to-peer, and these are the meetings that we have to set up based on the major gifts, and it's your board, your peer telling you that, it's a whole nother message.
Sure.
It's a whole nother level. What I find is that we are so busy as EDs and CEOs that our board becomes a necessary evil, and we only focus on the board right before the board meeting. And we don't think about how we can leverage the board, because board bashing is real. It is so real.
I don't think I've ever done that before. I actually had a board. This was one of the best years I ever had when I was down in East Texas. I had a board member by the name of Matt. Matt was board president, super alpha, like crazy alpha. But he would always go, he wouldn't try to embarrass people, but he'd be like, hey, Sabrina, at board meetings, so everybody knew, and I think people came half as fear that they didn't want to be called out. Hey, Sabrina, I saw you only sold one golf sponsor sign. Is there anything I can do to help you out?
I would love that. I would have no problem.
That's what I'm saying.
Him whatsoever. I am about creating that culture of accountability, because what happens if you don't create that culture of accountability? On most of the time, one or two people does everything. My board was, at the beginning of the board packet, was a Excel sheet, and that Excel sheet had them color coded red, green, or yellow. And red mean you didn't hit your fiduciary responsibility. Yellow meant you were almost there. Green, and they were full disclosure, and no one had a problem calling anyone out. But did that happen overnight? No, it did not happen overnight. It was a culture that was created. And that's what's so shocking to me, that people are resistant to that culture.
Well, to me, it's a little bit of everybody wants a medal kind of thing. And sometimes it's, oh, but you're hurting my feelings. And nobody's intentionally, I'm working right now with one of my customers, and we're going to get into some board work, because 90% of the work is done by 10% of the people, kind of thing. Like they always say that in church. And I told them, I said, my corollary, the Brian corollary on that, is that 90% of the work is done by 10% of the people, because those 10% of the people let it happen.
Exactly.
It's got to be one of those points to where you say, listen, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to call anybody out. But if we're going to serve more kids, if we're going to feed more hungry people, if we're going to save more pets, whatever your mission is, I need you to be a part of that. And I need you contributing. This is not personal. You're a wonderful human, and I appreciate your time. But I don't need you to be names on the letterhead.
Right.
I need you to be a person that when they see you walking by, they're going to go, oh my gosh, there's Sabrina Walker Hernandez. She's on the Boys and Girls Club, this, that, and the other board. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what you want them to see.
Yeah. And I 100% agree. But I've seen it where people just give up on board members and just stop engaging them completely. And then they say,
I've done that.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah. And then they say, well, I don't like board members. And it's frustrating from someone that looks at it from the perspective that I look at it from.
Right.
Because it's like if you're doing this individually, let's say you're having an event and everybody was supposed to sell 2 tables, right?
Right.
And you have 5 people who didn't sell 2 tables. What's the consequence? If the board chair does not have the cojones to pick up the phone and say, you didn't sell your 2 tables, it equated to $2,000. What is the plan
to make up
for you to generate that $2,000?
Right.
We understand that selling other tables might not be comfortable for you.
Okay, so I had a guy on my board who when I was in East Texas, I had some really great board members. And one of them, this guy, turned out he was a state rep. He ran for state rep of Texas, and he was served for 10 years. Really good, level-headed dude. And one of the things we talked about, we had a point system in place, right?
Yeah.
And basically, you got points for meeting. Because, I mean, the idea was, the way we kind of did it is everybody contributes in some way. Yeah. As long as you can get to, I'm going to tell you the number. It doesn't make a difference if I don't explain it, but it was like 100 points is what your goal was each year.
Right.
Now, we gave a bunch of extra credit and extra points and extra acknowledgement for raising money. So if we want everybody to raise $5,000, but for every 1,000 over that, you got an extra point. So if you were just a monster fundraiser, you could get your points and skip every meeting. I'm not encouraging that, but you know what I'm saying?
No, you
still rewarded because at the end of the day, the bottom line is you've got to have the income coming in, or you don't pay the light bill.
Correct, but you still will get voted off if you miss 3. These are the things that I be talking about: the consistency and the fairness.
And we got to the point very specifically and said, it's going to be December, and not extenuating. Don't give me extenuating circumstances, an illness, a divorce, a change. Not that.
Right.
Just regular life. If you don't get to 100 points in, by the first meeting in the next year, January, don't come. We're not going to call you out. We're not going to say, oh, all those in favor of voting Brian off the board. No, just don't come. You're off. If this is important to you and you want to be on our board, we can put you up again next time, but you're just automatically off. Because one of the things that Chris said, my state rep, awesome president said, he goes, his points are great and they're a great gauge for people. But like you just said, if there are no consequences,
right?
Then what's the and again, we're not. This is. I know it's a volunteer, and I don't need this crap. Great. I get it. Then don't be on our board because
then don't do it.
If you're not making meeting, you're not helping.
Making meeting, you're not helping generate revenue. Right. You're not doing the job.
You're not helping our mission. You're not helping the kids. You're not helping the animals. You're not helping the abused women. You're not helping the hungry. You're not helping the homeless. Whatever. Right. You're not helping.
Yeah.
You might have it in your heart, and you might be a good supporter. You might be a good emeritus board.
Thank you. But you're not a governing board member. You're not the closest member to the family. I don't. So yeah, I think the only board character that I have not been able to just manage or get along with because it's a trigger for me is the board bully. I dislike to my core a board bully. Have you ever had to deal with a board bully before?
I've never had those because I mean, but part of that is, Sabrina knows me. For those who don't, I can be a very sarcastic, big mouth. If you want to go into a battle, I'll be passive. I'll be like passive. Then you just get me to a point. And I go, okay, let's go. Yeah. And I'll argue with you. And I'll be sarcastic, and I'll come well armed, and I'll have good numbers to throw at you and say, in a roundabout way why you're wrong. Kind of thing, without saying, "Oh, you're wrong." Right. That kind of thing. So yeah, that's not me. So you take over.
Yeah. So I've never personally had to deal with a board bully, but I've seen clients that had to deal with board bullies, and what I advise them to do, because they're bullies for one. These are all my opinions and all my assumptions. Okay. So I've seen it where if a board member thinks that they have more influence or power, they see the ED as lesser than,
Right.
then they tend to think it's okay to bully. I've
Well,
seen
give some examples. Give some. How do you bully? Give me examples.
just rude to people, just rude to them during a board meeting, just demeaning, and feel like it is okay to be demeaning. I've seen it. The other one I've seen is what I consider to be board bullying, or the motivation behind it is they are one of the top donors to the organization. And so because they are the top donor to the organization, they think they can do and say and treat people anyway.
If you don't like it, I'm taking my money. If you don't hire this person, I'm taking my money.
Yes. And what I say to the people in the room is, at some point, you're going to have to make a stand. You either continue to tolerate the behavior, or you take a stand. But when you take a stand, know that you're going to have a strategy in place
to make up that money.
Replaces that money.
Yep.
That's it. Those are your choices. So has it ever personally happened to me? No. It's never personally happened to you? No. So it begs me to think, why has it happened to us?
Because I think we're strong and we keep our board. This is a whole other thing on board, but I mean, I think this is part of it. The board has to feel, much like we talked about before about donors, and donors don't want to feel like they're your ATMs. Right. You know, I think boards want to feel like they're part of success, and not always like, hey, Sabrina, I need you to sell 3 more signs. Hey, Sabrina, we're low on money for this. Hey, Sabrina, did you do? It's not a checklist. You want them to feel like they're actually for real being part of advancing your mission.
Right.
And if you don't, like you said, take them out to eat or talk to them or have a lot of time with them, then I think I think that's why I didn't have it. I'd talk to them and not at them. You know, I know of 2 very specific people that you and I both know. I think you know one of them real well, who both got fired by their board from Boys and Girls Club, different local clubs, because they were like, I'm the ED and this is the way it's going to be. And for what I can tell you this, in both situations, they, as the ED, were right procedurally. Right. I think they fell on the sword at the wrong time because they suffered the consequences of having to be procedurally right.
Right. You know correct. I mean?
Yeah.
Which brings us into one more little thing that's not what it is, board, but since we have the audience here, I've learned never to go into a CEO position without having a contract in place, because your board are a collection of personalities. And what if Jesus told them to fire you? Well, Jesus.
We had a guy named even worse, we had a guy named Jesus on our board. What if he started the whole thing and Jesus
Exactly. So if that's great, if Jesus told you to do this, but when you do it, just know that my contract says you're going to give me a year severance. Right. So you don't have to walk into these positions without a contract.
Right.
Nonprofit, you can have a contract.
Yeah.
So that's a little side note, but I think it was worth saying.
No, I think it's very important. Yeah, because a lot of people don't know that, because you're just excited to be the new executive director, and you're just going to do what the board says, and they're your bosses. It's your organization. I mean, it's all of your organization, but you as the executive director get all the accolades. You get all the, my kid.
Good, bad, and ugly.
I mean, it could be a whole situation that you had nothing. I could be, one of my staff could have just gone off and yelled at a kid. Well, you are so stupid. You never yell at a kid.
Right.
And parents are going to be like, Brian, you're terrible. And I was like, first of all, you say I didn't do that, and I really apologize. But still, you get all the good, you get all the bad. So it is your organization.
Yes.
And it's your responsibility to drive that direction, because if you're something that we were talking about off air, if you're a leader versus a manager, then you lead. Then you bring your job is to bring your organization to the next level, to serve more kids, to save more pets, to all that stuff. That's your job.
Yeah.
They're your support. They're your engine.
Support. And everybody plays a role. Yeah, everybody plays a role.
Exactly.
So, and I think, again, we will start, and we'll segue into the next conversation, is we will start with the lack of people knowing what their roles are.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to.
I mean, one of the things I'd always tried to do, I would always try to get, when I have new board members at their first meeting or second meeting, I would tell all the current board members, don't make the motion to approve or deny. Don't second it. Let them try to do it. Just get them into the rhythm.
Right.
Drive a motion. Hey, Becky, why don't you want to try? Becky. I mean, I would tell them that.
Right. It's okay. You can talk.
I mean, so they get into that rhythm of,
yes.
What we're doing and how we're doing it. So.
Yes. So I have loved this conversation, but let's talk about the summit.
Less than 48 hours. What are you doing?
Less than 48 hours away. So tonight, I'm going to go live and announce who the grant recipient is going to be. So every year when I do the summit, I give out $500. It's a small grant. It's $500 to a nonprofit. I have 45 applicants.
Wow.
I had to sift through 45 different applications. And so tonight I get to announce who the grant recipient is going to be from part of the proceeds from the summit. So the summit itself is free, but if you upgrade to the VIP swag bag, that is where you will get, okay, Brian, go with me on the memory.
You need a PowerPoint slide. You just go pop.
Pop, pop, pop. They say I'm going memory. So here it is. You get the recordings. So if you register for free, you will get the replay, but it's only going to be for 24 hours. You will have access to it for 24 hours. It's going to be streaming into the Facebook group. So you'll have 24 hours to look at day one. If you can't be there live and you can't watch it, the 3 people that's going to be talking within that 24-hour period, it goes away. So day one, each day is actually following a format. You're going to have someone talking about fundraising, someone talking about marketing, and someone talking about board. So you get to 24 hours. If you need more time, I like recordings. Now, I'll be honest. Now, Brian, I'm going to be honest. I have bought some recordings and never went back to look at them. I'll be honest. But
they're there. They're there.
But they're there. And there have been some that is so good that I do go back. If it's not just for like one sentence can change your mindset. And I was like, what did they say? And I'll go back and I'll look at those. So that is the opportunity. 2 is you get a transcript. For the people who don't like video, you get a transcript of all the recordings. So you can go back and read it if that's what you want to do. If you're having a board meeting and you don't have the video, but you have the transcript, and you're going to be like, what did Brian say? What did Sabrina say?
Brian said that board members are psycho. Did he really say that?
That's what he said. I can't say that. Yeah. So you get the transcript. Also, one of the things that I'm excited about is if they're VIP that I know, and you did this last year too, and I thank you, you will write a grant for them, right? Up to $25,000.
I'll find it and write it.
So you're doing the research, the prospecting, and everything. You're doing it all. Okay.
And on a side note, the other thing I was thinking of doing, and I'll talk to whoever wins, whether I write the grant for them. The big thing about when you do grants is the narrative. The narrative is the hard with the supporting numbers and stuff like that. This could be just as valuable as actually writing a grant, is writing that narrative. So then you have it and you can cut and paste it to $1 billion worth of grants if you want to. So it's written, because that's where people have a lot of trouble, is structuring their grant of here's the narrative, here's the expectations, here's the outcomes. So we'll talk, but if you want me to just write a $25,000 grant and be done with it.
How about you write it and share the narrative?
I don't know. That's a lot.
I know, man, but I mean, you're going to do it. You might as well do it. You see, we're sitting here negotiating right in front of you.
That's true. I could probably do that then. That's how I started anyway. Yeah.
You're right. I'm like, hey, you're going to go all in. You might as well go all in, right? I'm really excited about that. You will get the course Jumpstart Your Nonprofit, which is actually 6 modules, and it will go over how to write a case for support. It will go over how to identify donors.
Right.
Once you identify those donors, how do you engage those donors? Once you engage those donors, how do you then hold on, Brian, Stripe, my dog. How do you then engage your board to help with those donors? Because remember, you talked about, now how am I going to go and get my board to do X, Y, and Z? So that's going to be a part of that six module course.
Is this a Supporting World Hope original?
It is a Supporting World Hope original. I've had several people go through that course and really appreciate that course, because it takes you from the case for support. Most people don't know how to talk about their organization and how to get I threw my cup at him. Yes, I did. How to talk about their organization, or how to tell that emotional hook story.
Right.
And so it goes through that and how you're going to do that. And what does that mean? And then if you get a good case for support, then once you have that case for support, that becomes the marketing background for your website. It becomes the marketing background for how you tell your story. And so it's a really good tool. Not only that, you will get, thank you for saying that. It helps me align my thoughts. So you would get the house party friend raising kit. So Brian, you remember the house party for hopes?
Oh, I have stuff on my page on them too. Yes.
I love that concept. Actually, that changed my organization and got my board members more involved in fundraising. My board members actually liked doing those house parties. And it really helped us when we went into a capital campaign and building an endowment. And so I use a part to that content to create this house party friend raising kit, because one of the most frequent questions that I get asked a lot is, how do I find new donors and how do I engage my board in fundraising? So that kit helps you do both of those things. You're also going to get, this is from Crystal Cherry. She's giving the ultimate board toolkit. She's also a board specialist. And not only that, Brian, are you ready to tell the people about our S&B mastermind community?
Are we?
Well, I know as a part of the swag bag, they're going to get a 50% discount off of our community.
I'm assuming, here's my thing. I'm assuming because you just sprung this one on me, I think is that off your 50%, not my 50%. Right?
It's yours and mine. It's been in the description for a long time now. I'm reading. At this point, I'm reading right now. So I mean, that's just some of the things. Everything in the swag bag, if you had to pay for it individually, would it be $5,400?
It'd be $1 million.
$1 million. So
no, I think the hand goes down. 1 million.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that way. So, but that's why it's so. We put a lot of thought into this VIP swag bag. You're also going to get a content marketing bundle. A lot of you know Julia Campbell. She is a social media guru. And so she's included that, as well as Kelly. I can't remember. Kelly is also a grant writer, and she's included some grant writing tools in there as well for you. So
I think she's doing a calendar. She's big. One of Kelly's big things is she'll do a calendar for, I don't know if she's doing it for everybody or if it's a drawing, because I probably have drawing, but that's a lot of calendars. But she does a whole calendar for like a year that she's not writing your grants. Now you can.
No, but she's doing a master calendar. She's doing it for everyone.
Yeah. To where to say, look, this grant, it's a pretty big grant. Now, obviously it'll make a difference if, there's going to be some that are going to be animal friendly, some that are going to be youth friendly, some that are going to be homeless friendly, whatever kind of grant, some are, faith-based, whatever. But she puts them on this calendar, and it'll be like, hey, in June, you got to apply for the Meadows Foundation. If you're, when we get to December, you got this. I mean, she's got a really great kick on that too. And that'll help you. Again, I'm always been a fan of hiring a grant writer, but the flip side is she's really helping you out. If you have somebody on staff that's going to be invaluable.
Oh, that saves them so much time than rather than go out there and look and see and find these things. You get a master calendar. So we just want you to know about that because we're like 48 hours away. We got to get through the selection first. Oh God, Brian, I don't know. We got to get through that first. I don't know what I was thinking when I said the 6th. I got to get myself 24 hours to emotionally process whatever's about to happen. But we will be here on the morning of the 6th at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Registration will be open today and tomorrow. It will be open on the 6th, and you'll still have time to get the VIP swag bag. A lot of people, because I've done this conference for 4 years, will wait until they see the first day of content. Yeah. And then they will buy the swag bag. But I'm just telling you.
Well, but you know what, though? I think to be honest with you, I don't fault somebody for wanting to do that because, there are plenty of, I'll be first to tell you, there are plenty of these things out there. Yes. And I've attended some of them, and some of them are great, and some of them are just completely ridiculous. This
is not ridiculous.
I know. No, I'm not saying it is. But, I appreciate that. Yes, I know that we're not ridiculous, and the people we have lined up are pretty amazing. So my thought is that when people see that we've got great people, we've got great advice, great stuff, they'll want to join.
Yes.
So I don't have, if you wanted to sign up and get your swag bag 30 minutes before the last day on Friday, great.
Yeah.
Get all that stuff because, it helps you. Our job right now, because we've seen it, we've lived through it. We said that, we told you last time when we did one of these live deals, you and I have about a half century just between us, let alone everybody else who's going to be speaking and presenting and all those kind of things, just between us, so you guys don't make the same dopey mistakes that we've made.
Yes.
Because I've made some dopey ones. Sabrina's made some dopey ones.
Yes.
You can avoid them. We're all going to have our pitfalls and our, things that happen with the local board and things that happen with our local fundraising and all their circumstances. I dig it. But if you can be prepared and have that information, whether it's this, our build, or whether it's if you do, like I said, Sabrina and I will talk a little more about our
mastermind.
Sabrina and Brian masterminds, and what we're going to give you there. We're going to guide you through a lot of stuff to make you to go from. I always say the goal is to go, whether it's board members, whether I'm coaching little kids, anything. Your goal is to get your players from a C to a B, and then a B to an A.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that I believe, and having read the material, having gone through a lot of this stuff, I believe that the stuff that we're going to give you for that mastermind is going to be going from a C to an A. We're jumping that B slot. We're giving you some good stuff to really make your nonprofit strong in the area of marketing, in the area of board development, in the area of fundraising, in the area of grants, in the area of doing events, in the area of onboarding. There's so much stuff, and it's going to be so comprehensive for what you're going to get. Your nonprofit's going to
and the best thing that I think about it is our backgrounds. Like, we do have 50 years, half a century of experience, but our experience is diverse. You working with rural clubs, rural organizations. I consider myself suburban organization. It's not rural, not like in East Texas.
Listen to this. How's this too? How many people in your community are Spanish speaking?
97% of my community.
That's what I'm saying, because you're down by the border, working with totally different it's one thing that, okay, you and I look differently because of the color of our skin, but we still speak the same language, communicating with other people, learning other cultures, traditions, and how to work. There's a lot that we could,
we have varied experience that we can bring to the table around all of these different topics. And that's what we're really excited to share with everyone. So hopefully you hear us and you will register for the Build Summit that is happening in 48 hours and come and hear what we have to say. And then we will then
get some knowledge, get some free knowledge.
And then we'll segue into our SMB Mastermind, which I'm very excited about. So Brian, thank you so very much. You have a blessed one, and I will see you offline later.
Yes, I'm staying right here right now.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.